Hi there, Dr. Vicki Lemfer here with the Shift Happens channel. Today, we're going to talk about unwanted circumstances, but really, how do we change our self concept and how do we really navigate expectations and assumptions and all of that? And something hit me today while reading Neville Goddard, The Power of Awareness. That's a great book. If you ever get a chance to read one, that would be one I would recommend. I also have this, the Neville Goddard. Basically, it's all of his lectures and all of his books, all in one location. So I love that. But in particular, we're going to talk about your attitude. And it's in chapter 7 with Neville Goddard's book, Power of Awareness. So often, things show up, people show up in our 3D, and we're like, oh my gosh, what did I do to manifest this? What am I saying? Yes, you can analyze yourself, but I'm always going to tell you to be careful. Don't blame yourself too much. And it's never too late to change because the only person you need to change is yourself. So I often tell you to go back to you and go back energetically. But let's take a look at a couple of things. I'm going to read to you a couple of things that we're going to talk about. But before we do, go ahead and like, share, and comment. And that helps me get my message out. And I so appreciate everyone's comments. I'm having some fun. I've got some great clients that are making some great strides as well. If you need help with your journey, go ahead and contact me at shifthappenslifecoaching at gmail.com. Okay, so let's get into it. This is chapter 7, Attitude from Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. All right, your assumptions determine not only what you see, but also what you do, for they govern all your conscious and subconscious movements towards the fulfillment of themselves. Okay, so your assumptions determine not only what you see, but also what you do. Okay, so when you are encountering 3D circumstances, and I don't want to say negative or positive, when you are uncomfortable, there's a situation that comes in, and you're like, ooh, that doesn't feel so good, right? And I will always tell you, feel the feels in the very beginning. You're going to have your first reaction, but it's how you respond to that. That's how you know if you're changing, right? And it's a process. Yeah, it can happen overnight, but oftentimes we have so many built-in belief systems that you're trying to change the old self. And sometimes people call it the purge, and some people call it just a shifting. I call it shift happens because that's my channel, because it just incremental shifts. But the thing is, I'm going to read to you another thing, maybe this will help. It is not surprising that these experiments prove that what appears to be solid reality is actually the result of expectations or assumptions. So we think somebody is going to show up a certain way. They do, right? And then when you think you're doing really well, you're working on yourself, and then 3D circumstances inevitably comes up and kind of slaps you with something else that disturbs you. And so how do we deal with that? I go back to God so often. And here's the thing. I believe, like, this has been my experience with law of assumption. What attracted to me about law of assumption is that I felt like, okay, I'm in control of what I desire. Like, I'm not just like, well, whatever happens, happens. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And so you're kind of like, well, I hope that works. And then all of a sudden I found law of assumption. And I'm like, wait, I have control over if I want to manifest this desire. And you do. However, there is a part of you that needs to let go. And so a lot of those belief systems will come up and challenge you, especially when we're met with challenging situations that may not feel so great. And so your assumptions, your expectations, especially surrounding other people, especially with your romantic relationship, right? And that's what we call it, but I just say relationships because it's a relationship with coworkers, colleagues, bosses, friends, family, romantic person, whatever it is. But your number one relationship is with God. And that's the part where law of assumption was like, oh, I felt like, okay, I intend to do this. My expectation is here, and this is how I'm going to do it. Da, 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 da. And I thought, boy, I have control. I can just, you know, Yeah and no, right? Because it's like, wait a minute. The biggest piece of this is God. And so oftentimes we kind of forget about that because we're like, you can do this, use your imagination. As Neville Goddard often states, your imagination is God. And so be aware of the conversations you're having. So when people show up and they start, you know, giving you challenging moments, it is, a reflection of your thought process. But I don't want you to blame yourself and go into a rut where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a bad person. It's too late. I don't have a hope. And really what you need to clean up is that forgiveness. A Course in Miracles is all about forgiveness. And that forgiveness paves a way for peace. And that's truly what it is. And so the more you go in and really tap into that God source, that higher self, that divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it, right? Um, and lean into that and know that it's got your back, right? And 3D circumstances are there to teach you and point you back to that God self, to that knowing that it's okay, right? If you can change your opinion of another, then what you now believe of him cannot be absolutely true, but is only relatively true. So basically, it's saying, they'll show up because they're on their path as well. But the more you work on yourself and how you forgive and allow people to be themselves and just accept it for what it is right here and right now, and they'll show up, but it'll be more peaceful because you're at peace. It's not about, oh my gosh, I gotta, lose weight and make a bunch of money, and oh, that'll be so attractive. And maybe that's a quick way to, you know, be like, ooh, wow, that resume looks good, right? But everything is deeper than that. And it's about peace and love and joy in yourself. That's that self-love. That's the connection to that source. So what I'm saying is the minute you start changing yourself, and that is changing yourself, of going, oh, that didn't feel so good. Now I'm going to go dig deep into myself and go, okay, I am God. All the answers are within me. My imagination is here. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to try and conjure something up. I'm going to just kind of go with that flow, experience those negative or uncomfortable emotions, because you should always feel them. Because the minute you start feeling them, they go away. Every emotion, the good and the bad, whatever, the comfortable and the uncomfortable emotions, they're all temporary. Circumstances are temporary. What is not changing is God. And so God is always there. You throw it onto your higher source, your power source, and say, you got this now. You know what's in my heart. A lot of times we think that we have to have it so specific and so, have the perfect scene and perfect affirmation. You know, it's implied, right? It knows. You don't have to be specific and, oh my gosh, I didn't use the correct tense, the present tense, the future tense. Oh my gosh, the past tense. Now I'm really screwed up. No, you just be kind to yourself and always go back to you. And what is it that 3D, what is it that's the emotion? Is it jealousy? Is it sadness? Is it anger? And then go deeper. Try to be specific on that emotion. And if it's jealousy, then what is it? Jealousy is actually really cool. I've come to terms with a lot of negative emotions, and I say negative, but uncomfortable emotions, because to me they're not negative. They actually are showing me what I need to give myself. So jealousy, that means, ooh, they're doing something that I truly want to do, so better step up and figure out how to show up, right? And so you give yourself that. But the point is, you know assumptions, expectations, the only really assumption or expectation you really need to have is for you to connect into and lean into that source, that power source, that has your back, that's not going to ever change. It's never going to abandon you. It's never going to reject you. It's never going to not love you. That's the best relationship and the only relationship you need to really dig into. Because the more you dig into that, the other stuff comes without even trying. Everything I teach is counterintuitive to what we've ever been taught. Try harder. No, don't try. Care. No, stop caring what other people think. Stop caring about what people are going to do if you say this or that. Stop thinking, right? And just be. And just truly be in the moment and allow things to come and go. That you are that awareness. You are the I am awareness. And what does that mean? Explore it. If you don't know what it means, contemplate it for a while. But don't try to find the answer. The answer will come to you. Don't try to get your manifestations. Don't try to get the car and the house. It'll come to you. Yeah, have fun with it. Play with it in your imagination. Play with it in your imagination. That's it. Okay. I kind of went all over the place. But that's the way it is. Manifesting is all over the place, right? It's not a streamline. There's no real steps to it. I can point out steps that I use in different moments, and different techniques, because I do affirm, I do visualize, but I do it playfully and I do it without trying to get something for the most part. Come on, I'm human. There's moments where you're like, okay, if I do this, I still revert back to the old self. But that is what we're trying to do, is bring in the new self, let that old self die and let the new come in, and start having different expectations and assumptions for yourself, not for others, just yourself, and see how your world changes. See how people show up differently when you start to have peace and calm and acceptance. Acceptance is really forgiveness. But anyway, that's another video. All right. I know this landed with you. Go ahead and like, share, and comment. That's how I get my message out. If you need help, go ahead and contact me at shifthappenslifecoaching@gmail.com. Until next time. All right. Take care. Bye. That was a big clap.